The sky hung low and bruised, a vast dome of storm-churned violet and iron-gray, pressing down on the obsidian spire that speared it like a dagger. Below, the city of Catherine unfolded in stark, brutal geometry, massive ziggurats and angular fortresses built to endure a gravity that would crush lesser species. This was a world of titans, of warriors whose bones were forged in pressure and pride. And among them, one small figure stood apart, Kale, the only human ever allowed past the outer sanctums of the Krill High Caste. He didn't turn when the doors hissed open behind him. He knew the scent, ozone and cold stone, the faint metallic tang of blood held in check. Zaira had arrived. She stepped forward, her boots striking the floor with a resonance that vibrated through the deck. Her skin, the deep green of moss under moonlight, was marred by fresh scars. Her armor, once flawless, bore the dents of betrayal. But it was her eyes that held the storm, golden, luminous, now stripped of their arrogance and filled with something raw, something new, doubt. "You survived," she said, voice low, as if speaking to the wind. "Barely," Kale replied, still gazing at the city. "Your brother's hunters nearly turned me into fertilizer for the black ferns." A flicker passed over her face, shame, anger, something softer. She had sent him away, ordered him to flee when the ambush came. He had refused. And when Forlag's blade had found her spine, it was Kale who dragged her through the acid rains, who jury-rigged a spinal brace from wreckage, who kept her heart beating with a stolen pulse generator meant for cargo drones. To the Krill, it was unthinkable. A human saving a warrior. Worse, carrying her. "You should have left me," she said. "Death in battle is honor. Death in the arms of a weakling is mockery." Kale turned then, his gray eyes steady. "Then call me a mocker. Because I wasn't about to let you die just to satisfy a code written by cowards who hide behind tradition." Silence fell like a slab of stone. She had spent her life believing strength was everything. That honor was measured in the weight of your warhammer, the depth of your scars, the silence with which you faced annihilation. But Kale, small, fragile, breakable, had faced down a Krill warband with nothing but a plasma torch and a lie whispered into a comms array. He had outthought them. Outweighted them. Outlived them. And he had done it for her. Days earlier, Kale had been knee-deep in the wreckage of a downed Terran gunship, sifting through twisted alloy and fried circuitry. The air was thick with the stench of burnt insulation and something worse, decay, slow and fungal, rising from the cracked earth. His HUD flickered, tagging a salvageable power core, its casing split like a rotten fruit. Then he saw it, a flash of violet, pulsing faintly beneath a slab of hull plating. Not a signal. Not a flare. A bioluminescent thread, woven into the fabric of a torn Krill combat suit. He followed the trail. It led him to her, pinned under a fallen dorsal plate, half buried in the mire. Her breathing was shallow, her left leg shattered at 2 points, the bone pressing against skin like a blade trying to escape. When her eyes opened, they weren't just angry. They were accusing, as if his presence was the final insult. "Don't touch me," she growled, voice raw as broken glass. "You'll bleed out in 12 minutes, Kale said, already unbuckling his medkit. "And I'm not letting you die because your pride won't let you accept help from a lesser being." She spat at his boots. He didn't flinch. He worked in silence, setting bones with hydraulic clamps, sealing ruptured vessels with biofoam, rewiring her exosuit stabilizers so she could stand. Every movement was precise, detached. Not a soldier. Not a savior. Just a man doing what needed to be done. At one point, he reached for a buckle near her shoulder. His breath brushed her cheek. She flinched, not from pain, but from the intimacy of it. A human, touching a Krill warrior like she was fragile. Like she mattered. "You think this changes anything?" she whispered. "No," he said. "But it should." They traveled through the bone forests, where trees grew in spirals and the ground sang underfoot. Zyra taught him to read the language of the land, the tilt of a branch, the absence of insects, the way shadows pooled unnaturally. Kale, in turn, showed her how to weaponize silence. How to turn a broken comm unit into a sonic mine. How to fake a thermal signature with a scavenged battery and a strip of foil. "You fight like a thief," she said once, watching him bury a resonance charge beneath a game trail. "We call it strategy," he replied. "You krill charge. We think." She almost smiled. And then, one night by a dying fire, she asked, "Why did you come back for me?" Kale stared into the embers. "Because no one ever came back for me." Something cracked in her then, not her armor, not her bones, but the core of her belief. The idea that strength was everything. That weakness was death. That honor was only for the mighty. She had been taught to die on her feet. He had taught her how to live on her knees. When they returned to Catherine, the elders gathered in the Hall of Echoes, where the walls remembered every oath ever sworn. Forlag stood among them, towering, his armor etched with the sigils of conquest. He sneered as Kale entered, flanked by Zyra, walking now, supported by a sleek, human-designed brace that hummed with adaptive hydraulics. "This is an outrage," Forlag boomed. "She returns, not in glory, but carried by a creature who can't even stand under our sky without a machine." The chamber rumbled with agreement. Then Zyra stepped forward. She didn't shout. She didn't draw her blade. She simply raised her hand, and played the recording. Kale had captured it during the ambush, Forlag's voice, clear and cold, ordering the strike on his own sister. "Remove the obstacle. The throne must not be divided." The room fell silent. Tradition demanded trial by combat. So it was given. Forlag faced Zyra in the pit of judgment, under the open sky. The old ways demanded no weapons but strength and will. But Zyra carried something new. Not a blade. Not a hammer. A truth. She spoke, not to fight, but to reveal. She laid bare the corruption, the lies, the hollow core of the honor they had all worshipped. She spoke of the human who had saved her not with force, but with choice. Who had defied gravity, biology, and prejudice to stand beside her. And when Forlag lunged, roaring, she didn't meet him with fury. She stepped aside. Let him fall. Let him break. Let the pit swallow his pride. And when the elders demanded a verdict, Zyra did not call for blood. She called for change. Now, on the observation deck of her ancestral spire, she stood beside Kale once more. Dawn bled across the bruised sky, painting the city in hues of copper and rose. "They'll resist," he said. "They already have," she replied. "But the young are listening. The wounded. The ones who've seen the cost of blind loyalty." She turned to him, her golden eyes no longer burning with fury, but glowing with quiet certainty. "You once said honor is what you do when no one is looking." He nodded. She reached out, slowly, deliberately, and placed her hand over his heart. "Then let the world see," she said. And below, in the streets of Catherine, the first murals began to appear, of a small figure carrying a giant, not on his back, but in his arms. A new legend had begun. Not of conquest, but of courage. The medbay's sterile light hummed like a trapped insect, casting long, sharp shadows across the gurney where Zalara lay. The Terran shuttle had extracted them from the planet's surface, Forlag captured and his loyalists scattered. The war, as far as the mandate was concerned, was over. Another border skirmish resolved. Another diplomatic incident filed under alien internal affairs. But Zalara knew better. As the medics worked, splicing nerve bundles, reinforcing shattered bone with bioceramic lattices, she didn't close her eyes. She watched the ceiling, her golden irises reflecting the flicker of diagnostics. She wasn't healing. She was calculating. And then, 3 days after extraction, she vanished. Not escaped. Not fled. Vanished. One moment she was in recovery, the next, gone. No alarms. No breaches. Just an empty bed, a single violet hair caught on the edge of a disengaged restraint, and a data chip left in Declan's personal locker. He found it when he returned from debriefing. The chip bore no encryption. No warning. Just a single audio file. He played it in the quiet of his quarters, the hum of the ship's engines a low thrum beneath the voice he knew too well. "They think the war is over," Solara said. "They think Forlag was the disease. But he was only a symptom." A pause. Then, softer, "Come find me, Declan. If you still believe in the future we talked about." The file ended with coordinates, deep in the silent belt, a dead zone between systems where no ship traveled and no signal returned. Declan went anyway. He took a scout skiff, stripped it of tracking beacons, and flew blind through the asteroid fields, past derelict warships frozen in eternal drift. For 17 days, he saw nothing but stars and silence. Then, on the 18th, he found it, a shattered moon, cracked open like an egg, its core hollowed out and repurposed. Inside, a city. Not Krill. Not human. Hybrid. Towers of black alloy rose in spirals, fused with organic growths, veins of bioluminescent tissue pulsing beneath metal skin. Walkways bridged chasms where gravity fluctuated unpredictably. And the people, tall, powerful Krill, yes, but altered. Cybernetic limbs threaded with neural lace. Eyes that glowed not gold, but amber, flickering with data streams. Some wore Terran tech like sacred armor. Others bore Krill war sigils branded over human-made implants. And at the heart of it all, on a dais of fused bone and steel, stood Solara. She turned as he approached, her legs, fully restored, augmented, carrying her with a grace that defied her size. Her armor was different now, not the rigid plates of tradition, but a fluid exosuit that moved like a second skin, humming with adaptive resonance. "You came," she said. "You left without a word," he replied, voice tight. "You didn't even say goodbye." "I wasn't leaving you," she said. "I was leaving the past." She led him through the city, Nixer, she called it. A refuge. A forge. A rebellion. "This isn't just about Forlag," she said as they walked. "It's about the code. The old ways. They don't just crush the weak, they fear them. Fear innovation. Fear change. Fear you. And so you built this?" Declan asked, gesturing to the fusion of flesh and machine around them. "Not alone," she said. "The ones you saw, they were exiled. Broken. Like I was. But I showed them that broken doesn't mean useless. It means open to change." She stopped before a massive archway, its surface etched with two symbols, the Terran infinity knot and the Krill mark of the unbroken line, now intertwined. "This is where we start," she said. "Not with war. Not with vengeance. With evolution." Then she turned to him, her expression unreadable. "But there's something you need to know. Forlag didn't act alone." Declan froze. "Who else was involved?" She hesitated. "Then, your captain." The words landed like a hammer. "He's been feeding intelligence to Krill traditionalists for years. Not to start a war, to prevent one. He believed peace could only be maintained by letting the old guard win quietly." Declan's breath caught. "He knew Forlag would try to kill you. And he did nothing." "Worse," Solara said. "He approved it. He thought your people needed a stable Krill regime, one that feared us enough to obey." Silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. Then Declan laughed, short, bitter. "So the man I served is the reason you almost died?" "Yes. And you brought me here because you need me to help you expose him?" "No," she said, stepping closer. I brought you here because I need you to help me replace him. He stared at her. You're not just building a new Krill society. You're building a new order. One that doesn't bow to fear. One that doesn't sacrifice the future for the illusion of peace. She reached into her armor and pulled out a small, pulsing core, a neural sync module, human in design, Krill in function. This is the first of its kind, she said. A bridge. Not just between machines and bodies. Between minds. It allows a Krill and a human to share thought, intent, even memory, without translation. Without delay. Her eyes locked onto his. Will you be the first to wear it with me? He didn't answer right away. He thought of the med bay, of her hand in his, of the kiss under the cave's veil of water. He thought of the exoskeleton, of carrying her through the dark, of being the anchor in a world that wanted to crush him. And he realized, she wasn't asking him to join a rebellion. She was asking him to become something new. Slowly, he took the module. Let's build it, he said. Not just a future. A species. She smiled, fully, fiercely, and for the first time, the gravity of her world didn't feel like a burden. It felt like destiny. And somewhere, in the void between stars, a new signal began to pulse, not a distress call. A birth announcement. The air in the Hall of Echoes was thick with the weight of centuries. Stone walls absorbed sound, but not tension. Zaira stood before the high conclave, her cybernetic legs humming faintly with each step forward. The elders of the Krill castes loomed in their carved thrones, faces etched with the deep grooves of tradition and suspicion. At the center of the semicircle, Forlag knelt, no longer in armor, but in the rough-spun gray of the condemned, his once proud crest now shorn, his hands bound in null-field cuffs that silenced even the thought of violence. Declan stood beside her, not as a guest, not as a savior, but as a witness. The silence broke when Elder Morka rose, his voice a landslide in the stillness. She breathes because of a machine. She walks because of stolen human sorcery. And yet she dares to stand among us, to speak for the code, when her very presence defile it. A murmur rolled through the chamber like distant thunder. Zaira didn't flinch. She stepped forward until her shadow fell across Forlag's kneeling form. You call it sorcery, she said, her voice low but carrying like a blade through fog. I call it truth. The truth that strength is not measured in the weight you can lift, but in the burdens you choose to bear. The truth that honor is not blind obedience, but the courage to see beyond the lie. She turned to the elders. Forlag did not act alone. He was not rogue. He was trained, by you. To believe that power must be preserved at any cost. That the weak must be culled. That the future must be shaped by fear. Her golden eyes swept the room. I was meant to die so that the illusion of unity could survive. But I lived. And I learned. Not from Krill. From him. She gestured to Declan. A ripple went through the assembly. Some spat. One elder slammed a fist on the arm of his throne. You would elevate a fragile thing, a creature who cannot survive our gravity without a cage of metal, to the status of teacher? Of equal? Morka sneered. Declan stepped forward. He didn't speak at first. He simply unstrapped the exoskeleton from his back, the same frame that had carried Zaira through the forest, that had defied physics and prejudice. He placed it on the floor with a soft clank that echoed like a gavel. Then he stood, unaided, in the crushing gravity of Catherine. His knees trembled. A thin line of blood trickled from his nose. But he stood. You think I'm weak because I need this, he said, nodding at the machine. But it's not weakness to use a tool. It's weakness to refuse one. Your warriors use blades forged in fire. Your ships use engines built by minds greater than any single Krill. Is that sorcery too? He looked at Zaira. I carried her not because she was broken. I carried her because she mattered. And if that makes me lesser in your eyes, then your eyes are blind. Silence. Then, Zaira reached into the folds of her armor and withdrew a data crystal, pulsing with a soft blue light. This is not just evidence of Forlag's betrayal, she said. It is a record of every purge, every silent execution, every accident that removed a progressive voice from our history. It goes back generations. The code was never pure. It was edited. Gasps. Shouts. One elder lunged to his feet, screaming for the crystal to be destroyed. But Zaira raised her voice above the chaos. I do not ask for vengeance. I ask for a trial. A true trial. Not by combat. Not by blood. By truth. She turned to the youngest among the elders, Terran, a warrior who had once fought beside her, who had questioned the old ways in whispers. You will lead it. With Declan at your side. Let the data speak. Let the people hear. The chamber erupted. Days passed like tectonic shifts. The trial was broadcast across every Krill world. The evidence unfolded, recordings, encrypted logs, confessions pulled from broken minds. The myth of the unbroken code shattered like glass. Forlag was not executed. He was unmade. Stripped of rank, memory, and identity, sentenced to live out his days in the memory pits, forced to relive every lie he ever told, every life he ever took, in endless neural loops. And Zaira? She did not take the throne. Instead, she founded the First Accord, a council of Krill, humans, and other species who had been deemed lesser by empires built on strength alone. In the heart of Catherine, where the spires once cast long shadows of dominance, a new structure rose, a circular hall with no central seat, no elevated dais. Only a ring of equal chairs. The first to sit in it were Zaira and Declan. Years later, when travelers came to the city, they spoke of a mural carved into the obsidian cliffs, a small figure, back-bent but unbroken, carrying a giant across a storm-racked plain. Beneath it, words in both Krill and Terran script. The greatest strength is not in standing tall. It is in refusing to let another fall. And in the quiet of the night, when the twin moons hung low over the capital, the people would say, if you listen closely, you can still hear the hum of the exoskeleton, walking beside the warrior, side by side, into the future.